All right, everybody, 3 games into the preseason. It's time for first impressions. We're talking about all of the new guys, the newest Boston Celtics. That's who we're examining today here on Green with Envy. So you guys know the deal. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Minott. Greg, it's time to do some first impressions, and I'm going to tell you right off the jump. I was up this morning at 5 a.m. with baby girl. She took a nap around like 6 a.m. to 6:45. Got to catch up on some of recording this on a Monday morning. Caught up a little bit on the first half that I missed last night. Right or wrong, this team's making me a little excited. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, man, they're going to be fun. They're going to be fun. Have you had a chance to listen to Simmons' conversation with Goldsberry last week?
I believe I did, but refresh me on the point that you're going to go for. I'm 90% sure I listened to it.
Simmons was basically saying the same stuff that we've been saying about how the Celtics are going to be like one of the most fun league pass teams this year, just because you don't know what you're going to expect with them. He was thinking they're going to shoot like an insane amount of 3-pointers. I do think they're going to shoot a lot of 3-pointers. But going off of, I don't know if you caught Joe Mazzulla's angry press conference answer to, I think it was Jack Simone, who asked the question where he was like, stop asking me about 3-pointers. Like, I've told you what the Celtics offense is. The Celtics offense is creating advantages in 2-on-1. And he just went full robot.
Yeah.
So it was just it was really spicy. It was just fun, just kind of listening to Simmons and Goldsberry talk about it. And they had some conversations that I want to bring up in the context of the new guys, but I just wanted to see if you'd listened to it yet.
Yeah. So definitely we can connect on that. But for this episode, we're going to focus specifically on the new guys. So that's rookies, guys that weren't on this team last year. We're going to talk so much about Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown. We're going to put them to the side for this podcast. This is all about the newbies. We've got 3 games of our first impressions now. So now we actually have something to base this on, right? Like we've been going off of theoretically, what does this guy do? We actually have seen at least, key word, Greg. What's the key phrase anytime we're early in the season here?
Expectations?
Small sample size.
Okay.
We've got a small sample size, but we have something to go off here. So we want to kind of go by player here and just kind of give you our first thoughts across these first 3 preseason games. Rick, I feel like we can just bounce this back and forth. You choose a guy, I choose a guy until we kind of run out. So I'll pass it to you here, a little bit of a quasi pass in the rock, if you will. Who's the first guy that you want to talk about out of the newbies from these first 3 games?
The first guy I want to talk about is Josh Minott, but before we get into that, I do want to give a little bit more context to the Simmons and Goldsberry conversation, because I wanted to think about first impressions in the context of a larger trend within the league. So they were discussing on the podcast how for the first time ever last season, more rebounds came off of 3-pointers than 2-pointers. And Goldsberry brought up how when he was at Grantland, he did a whole heat chart map of where rebounds happened on the court, right? And it just got me thinking
part of this combo.
Yeah. So it just got me thinking about where the league is trending, right? On the broadcast last night on ESPN, Doris Burke and Mark Jones were talking about, because I haven't had a chance to watch all of the preseason, right? I've really just watching the Celtics, how across the league pickup points are like full court or 3/4 court. Everybody seems to be learning from what OKC did and what Indiana did last year as the teams to most recently make it to the finals, and see if that's something like an inefficiency that they also can exploit, right? So it's all about finding those inefficiencies and being ahead of the curve rather than responding to the curve, right? So OKC and Indiana were ahead of the curve, and they've been ahead of the curve for a couple of years. So how do you build a team that accounts for a faster pace, longer rebounds, while continuing to build on Joe Mazzulla's overall philosophy of advantage basketball. As he said, create 2-on-1s and then take advantage of it, whether that leads to a 3-pointer or a layup, right? So some things I was thinking about. You need athletes on defense. You need ball handlers on offense. You need players who know how and when to set screens. You need players who know how to read screens and when to cut. You need shooters. You need to make quick decisions if you're not a ball handler, and you need to process the game quickly in their role, right? So whoever it is, process the game quickly in your role. So who fits this ideology on the Celtics, especially in the context of the new guys, if this is where the team and the league is trending? And it just brought me to Josh Minott, right? Because I think with what he does, he's an athlete. First and foremost, best athlete on the team. And I don't think there's a question about it. Like the bounciness that I see out of this guy, like every step that he takes, it seems like there are springs in his shoes. I always get these Instagram ads for like a sole that you can put into a shoe. I think it's called like Victory Soles, and it's supposed to like increase your vertical jump and make you more springy.
Is this the new what was it, Nike Shocks that had the springs in them, right?
Yeah.
This is the new age version of it.
No, but it's like he's in one of the Nike Shocks commercials. That's a great way to think about it. He's not necessarily a ball handler in offense, but he knows how to make quick decisions when given the ball, right? It's just like Spurs type philosophy. He's shooting the ball quickly, or he's driving a closeout and looking to dunk on somebody, and he's playing out in transition. And he seems to be a pretty intuitive cutter as well.
That's
So
what I
I
was
have
gonna say. I think he's a great cutter so far is one of the things. And that was interesting because that was one of Joe's big points in that rant is that, hey, if we don't have the same 38 to 40% shooters everywhere we did last year, then cool, somebody cut, make a new 2-on-1. And that has been a point of emphasis. And specifically, he stood out in that regard.
Absolutely. And shooting, I think it's going to be a roller coaster with him shooting 3-pointers just because it's very mechanical the way that he shoots. And it's not pretty, but he has made a couple 3-pointers, and it seems like this is something he's been working on just listening to all the news and notes. Over the past couple of years, he's just been living in the gym trying to develop a passable NBA 3-point shot. So I think of all the guys, first impressions, Josh Minott's been the one guy where I'm like, you know what? As the league is trending in this direction, I think it's trending towards players like Josh Minott who might be able to grab those long rebounds that are coming off of 3-pointers versus 2-pointers, who's going to thrive in an up-tempo 94-foot game. I think Josh Minott is kind of the prototypical guy, and it's really cool to see the front office looking at this offseason as a chance to add pieces that fit a trend that they were seeing.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you use that framework of the Goldsberry and Simmons conversation, because I think just off the top of my head, when you were going through that and kind of listing out what are the attributes or skills that each person needs to have, I think a lot of the guys that we're going to talk about for the newbies, probably don't fit all of them, but they fit some of the key elements to that. And so with Josh Minott, he has, without a doubt, I think he's the MVP of the preseason through 3 games, as far as just, where he's at based on expectations. Like in not knowing where this was going to go with these new guys, he's been the guy that I'm looking at where, this is an absolute overreaction, but is he finally the developmental wing project that Brad Stevens has been trying to solve for maybe 5-6 years? Maybe it's Josh Minott. I don't know. And maybe it might be in one of the other new guys that we'll talk about in a little bit as well. But I think between the two of them, I'm alluding to Hugo Gonzalez, who we will talk about some more here eventually. Like between the two of them, maybe one of them two is going to be that developmental project that, he tried to get with Romeo Langford, tried to get with Aaron Nesmith, who worked out, just wasn't going to have the opportunity to grow, as we've talked about many times here. Tried to fill the void with O'Shea Brissett, as we talked about, Torrey Craig, Jordan Walsh, who, he didn't play last night. And I think Jordan Walsh is a guy that's probably seen his time pass here in Boston. That's I think that's probably a true reaction, not even an overreaction. That's just the truth, is that it's probably not going to happen. But I think that's another example of different guys that Brad has tried to find. And maybe Josh Minott, he's the first one out of this group so far that, like, I'm feeling pretty good about. And again, a little bit of an overreaction, 3 preseason games, but I think he's the guy that you look at right now that you say, okay, this is a rotation guy. and he's 22 years old, right? Like he's still very, very young. I think 3 years in the league, and he was in Minnesota. And you think about Minnesota, they've been so wing heavy, right? Between Ant, Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like they've had really good wing sets and they've been really healthy. So he hasn't had an opportunity. Really,
Well, I mean, you just mentioned
out
Jaden McDaniels, right? And like,
Mhm.
you're not gonna play Josh Minott over Jaden McDaniels because Josh Minott's ceiling is Jaden McDaniels, right? You already have the
Yeah.
ceiling on your roster, so like, why are you gonna bring in the lesser version of him, the developmental version of him, when you've already developed Jaden McDaniels into Jaden McDaniels, right? There
Mhm.
was just like no space for Josh Minott on Minnesota, and he was on Minnesota for 3 seasons, right? He's 22 years old. He's someone that they've been developing, and it seems like, just like the Celtics developed Aaron Nesmith to a point, and then he flourished with Indiana. Maybe this is the karma for Aaron Nesmith, is that we're taking advantage of someone else who developed in another system and has come over
Yeah.
here, and we got him on a 2-year minimum contract. So,
Yeah. And the biggest difference is this team would have been an opportunity where Aaron Nesmith, you could have been a little bit more loose with his developmental minutes,
right.
right? In the situation he was in, he went to the NBA finals, as a rookie, right? That was that team, the 2022 team, or maybe second year. I can't remember his rookie year or second year, but like there wasn't room to say, hey, let's let this guy let it fly, make a few mistakes. It's going to be okay. Josh Minott's going to have that freedom on this team.
Mhm.
And this team's going to be deep. They're gonna rotate guys in seemingly, and it feels like Josh Minott's going to be a constant for this team.
Well,
So
when you think about him, especially when Tatum comes back, like a
Mhm.
lineup of White, Brown, Tatum, Minott, and Boucher, who started
insert
last night,
insert
or
big, yeah.
insert big, or they find someone that can actually play the 5. Like that, dude, this is the missing piece that we've been looking for. And
Mhm.
this is obviously 3 preseason games against C-level competition.
Yeah, we do
But
need to add in. We played 3 preseason games. Not a single starter from any of these teams has played in these games. So we understand there is that giant ass. I think Santi Aldama is the closest thing to a
right.
starter that has played in these 3 games. So we understand that.
But you just think of like the pieces that need to fit around the other guys, because you're not asking Josh Minott to come in and be, a top 4 option. You're asking him to be the 5th option anytime he's on the court, right? And I
Mhm.
think as a 5th option, all you have to do is be really good in the role that you have and understand how to play that role. And I want to pause there because when we get into our one team, one player, I want to come back to this point in the conversation.
Yeah, I like that. But I think without a doubt, that was the first guy that we should have gone to because, like I said, I think he's the MVP of the preseason so far. I'm going to go to another guy here, and this is probably the biggest, newest incoming addition. Let's talk about Anfernee Simons because this is a guy that openly you and I both admitted we don't have a ton of exposure to outside of highlights. So this is really getting the first full Anfernee Simons experience. So just quickly to run down, he didn't play the opening night against Memphis, but against Toronto, Anfernee Simons played just under 26 minutes, 6 of 13 from the field, 2 of 7 from 3, finished with 18 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists. Last night against Cleveland, he plays 25 minutes again, 6 of 12 from the field, 6 of 9 from the 3-point line, 3 of 3 from the free throw line, 21 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. And I'm very curious to get your initial thoughts on Anfernee Simons. For me, so far, and I'm just putting the defense to the side because of what we just mentioned. Of these are not guys that he's not getting targeted, right? It doesn't matter if he's getting targeted right now. Like they don't have, there's no guys out there to be able to do this. So I need to see defensively what he looks like more when we get to the regular season, and then I can make a judgment, after we see that. But offensively, he kind of lives up to the billing of what I expected. Minus one thing that you texted me the other day or you texted last night is I haven't really seen that explosive athleticism that I thought we might see a little bit more. But offensively, he's a tough shot maker, right? Like that's kind of and that's something that this team needs, to be clear, because outside of Jalen, Pritchard and Derek White to a degree, but they are smaller. Like Anfernee Simons feels like probably the second best guy. It's just like, hey, we need to get a shot. Here's 5 seconds on the clock, 6 seconds on the clock. Just go get a shot. The one thing that does stick out is it does feel like he dribbles the air out of the ball a little bit. And so from a movement playing quick, it's interesting because when before we started seeing some of these games, we were talking about the pace, the pace, the pace. That's all everyone was talking about in training camp. We're like, this might fit. This guy who's athletic wants to get up and down. He actually seems like he slows it up a little bit. Like he actually kind of takes it out of that rhythm a little bit. And so I'm interested to see what your thoughts have been, because scoring wise, tough shot maker, gets real hot, can make tough shots. Obviously, it's all over Twitter. It's like, does he look a little Dame lightish? Like, kind of makes sense. That was a little bit of his mentor in Portland. Got to watch him up close. He's been as advertised to me so far. So what have been your thoughts on Anfernee Simons through 2 preseason games that he's played out of the 3?
Well, you mentioned the Dame Light idea. There was even a clip last night where Scalabrine called him a Dame Lillard clone, right? And he brought it up that, the little punch, dribble, step back that he can get off like at a moment's notice. That is the shot that he clearly honed and developed under Dame Lillard's tutelage, right? And it's pretty much an impossible shot to guard or block, which brings up the idea of his athleticism, because that was the one thing that stood out to me is like, he's an effortless athlete, but he's kind of always kind of like Cade Cunningham-ish, right? Where he's always playing at this one pace, and he's good at like changing up the tempo, but you almost never see him go full board, and you wonder what full board actually looks like from him. Like, when does he explode? Like, where's the juice with that athleticism? So that was something that stood out to me. I was just kind of expecting a little bit more burst versus like this very fluid, balletic way that he plays, right? So in regards to him dribbling the air out of the ball, that was one thing that I kind of saw that goes along with this idea of being like a very fluid, nonchalant type athlete, is he doesn't really have point guard handles. And I think that if you're
stood out big time.
yeah, if you're trending towards a league in which you need to be able to bring the ball up against 94 feet, like he's not the guy that you're going to give the ball to and say, hey, handle this pressure, we're going to be good, right? Like he just doesn't really have that. He's just a little bit too slow with it. And he accepts the pressure versus attacking the pressure. Then I think you need to attack pressure if someone is coming up against you full court, like Derek White. Like when Derek White gets the ball, he just goes, and he doesn't really have like great handle, but it's a functional handle. And Simons has this like kind of pretty handle, but it's not as functional against pressure. So that was kind of what stood out to me. Doesn't have the point guard handles that I was kind of expecting him to have a little bit more of. And then
Can I jump in on this point real quick before you go to your next one? Because like that was something that really stood out to me, where it was like in my head, we were like, okay, who are the ball handling guards, right? It's Derek White, it's Peyton Pritchard, it's Anfernee Simons. And, the Raptors the Raptors are a prime example of they were guarding, the full court, picking up high, like really intense pressure. And I was like, oh, Simon seems kind of rattled by this. Like he's just like, 7,
backcourt
8
violations
behind the, yeah. Like, and really it's like, he's just dribbling to try to get out of this. And eventually he's going to have to put up a shot because he's had the ball already for 8-9 seconds. And so one of the things when you think about this picture that we started from that Goldsberry and Simmons conversation of higher pickup points, picking up 3/4 court, full court, whatever it might be, this is going to be a real struggle with this Celtics team especially when you get to the frontline starters that are going to be in these matchups. Because you mentioned Derek White, he's just so intelligent. He knows how to be functional with, even if he's not the best ball handler. Peyton Pritchard, without a doubt, the best ball handler on the team, like not even close. But after that, we know Jalen's not the cleanest ball handler. Simons seemingly I thought was going to be a little bit better with the ball, and that was going to help alleviate some of that pressure. But you look outside of that, and Joe went to Hugo Gonzalez pretty quickly as like, all right, you're the next point guard. Like Hugo Gonzalez might be the third point guard on this team already. And so thinking of the ball pressure, that's an area that has stood out to me in the preseason, that once teams are at full strength against this team, we're going to look at like, this team's going to turn the ball over. Even with their best guys, they're not going to be able to handle that. So that's an area that's definitely raised a little bit of a red flag through 3 games, despite the Celtics, winning the majority of the minutes in these 3 games. That's been something that I think has really stood out, and I've been a little surprised that Anfernee Simons hasn't been, hasn't been better at it, but that's me not knowing his game as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where the whole Jason Tatum aspect of the season really comes into play, is that you could just throw him the ball and he can handle that pressure, right? All right. So with Simons, the last thing I was going to say, he's listed at 6'3", but he's one of those dudes that just plays so much smaller and looks so much smaller on the court. Like
Yeah.
he's like a little floating piece of paper or like a leaf, the leaf in Forrest Gump, the feather in Forrest Gump, whatever it is. You're like,
Yeah.
dude,
Feather, yeah.
you're so frail out there on the court. He just doesn't have that like big bone, like the dense bone aspect to him. He just doesn't have that. He just looks like a piece of paper out there. And he plays really small.
Yeah, he's I mentioned at the podium he kind of gave me Ricky Davis vibes. Hasn't really changed much. Like I still get a little bit of Ricky Davis vibes. Just like, cool, this guy can score. He's a bucket, but like, for now, I'm whelmed. Right, I'm not overwhelmed, not
Yeah.
underwhelmed by him at this point.
So here's something. I think he kind of looks like him, but is he a 6'3" Brandon Ingram?
He does kind of look like him, right? That's interesting. Potentially. Like I think that could be. I think you're a little higher on Brandon Ingram than I am, but obviously when you
Brandon
mentioned
Ingram
the
looks good,
17,
man, in the preseason.
I haven't watched him yet, but I'm curious to see because I think like I mentioned last episode or 2 episodes ago, I think that Raptors team is pretty fascinating. Um, but yeah, that's not a bad comp. Like, is he just guard version of Brandon Ingram? Now, I think Brandon Ingram's a better facilitator. That's been the other part of Anfernee Simons is like, I was hoping there's a little bit more facilitation to his game so far. Haven't really seen much of that. That's an area that I do think Brandon Ingram's slightly underrated in is being able to be that facilitator or creator. But yeah, not a bad comp. So Anfernee Simons, I think just kind of as expected so far. So we'll have to see and keep that going. But let's go to your next newbie you want to talk about.
We got to go Hugo,
Hugo.
baby. Bringing back the idea of the framework for this conversation, right? You need athletes on defense was the first thing that I brought up. And I think with Hugo, dude, he's 19 years old. First of all, he's 19 years old. Like he's going to be a problem on defense in 4 years when he like really gets all the man muscle that he's going to develop over the next 4 years. And like his ability to play full court defense, which I think is going to be really important, point of attack defense, and also screen navigation. Like his ability to navigate screens has been really impressive to me. Reminds me a little bit of Drew Holiday, not gonna lie, on defense, just his ability to get around screens. Obviously, nowhere near the defender that Drew is and that Drew was in his prime, but like there are some flashes of it. You're like, oh damn, like he really moved his feet well and slid his hips around that screen or ducked his shoulder past the hip and was able to get through the screen like better than you would expect for a 19-year-old. And I think that's just the seasoning that comes with playing professional basketball for several years overseas, right? Ball handlers on offense was the second thing. As you said, he's probably the third point guard at this point with Jason Tatum out.
That's alarming for the team going into the season. But yeah,
and it's like a little
likely.
It's a little Derek Whitish in the way that he handles the ball on offense, right? It's functional. He's not going to do anything like we did see him bust out a sham god in game 2, and he loves that full speed Euro step that he hasn't quite figured out how to set that up at the NBA level yet. But it's very a functional handle, and he's got he doesn't have the moves yet that go along with the handle, but it's tight. It's a tight handle, and he's not just going to get picked in the full court like somebody like Anfernee Simons looks like he might, which is a little bit of a loose handle. You need players who know how and when to set screens. We haven't necessarily seen him as a screen setter yet, but we've seen him off ball using screens. And there was one play last night where Keita got the ball in a delay action, and there was a pin down on the right side, and Hugo decided to reject that and go backdoor, and he had a wide open layup opportunity, but Keita just didn't see the pass. But those types of high IQ plays off ball, I think Hugo is going to be really good at. And when you pair him, like Al Horford would have made that pass, Kristaps Porzingis would have made that pass, Rob Williams would have made that pass. Keita can pass, but he doesn't quite see it yet. So that's another thing. You need shooters. His shot isn't ugly. It's not Josh Minott, right? But he's 19, and I think it's going to take some time for him to figure out the NBA range there. But I don't mind the shot at this point. I think mechanically it's sound. You need to make quick decisions if you're not a ball handler. I think he's a very read and react type player off ball, and you need to process the game quickly in your role. Like Hugo Gonzalez literally hits every point on that list for me, except for the shooting is the one thing that he needs to really develop to be like Derek White level of a role player. But you see the vision there. Like I saw somebody post about this on Twitter where they were talking about that guy, what's his name, like Kalkbrenner, the 7'1" guy
Oh,
the Celtics.
Kalkbrenner,
Yeah,
he's in Charlotte. It was a guy that the Celtics could have drafted with that second pick. They ended up trading 3 different times or whatever.
exactly. And I saw some people be like, "Oh, we should have just taken that guy. Why'd we take Ugo?" It's like Kalkbrenner is not the prototype for where the NBA is trending right now.
Right.
Ugo is. He's not 6'9" like our guy Spoonie mistakenly said, but he's 6'6" and he's an athlete. So I like what I see out of Ugo so far. Super impressed with him, and I love how you mentioned in our text thread that Josh Minott and Hugo Gonzalez are like a Celtic version of the Terror Twins.
Yeah, the minor league version of that right there. And that's exactly where I was gonna go is when him and Minott specifically have been on the court together, I love that energy, right? Like, listen, we're going back for a year to the Brad Stevens, Isaiah Thomas type era teams where like we're gonna have to win some of these games unexpectedly just on like grit, effort, hustle, playing the math game. Like we're gonna have to the point the Simmons was making, we're gonna have to win some of these games in a very weird way. Right. And Joe Mazzulla is all about that. So I think the idea of just being able to at different times, and you mentioned this a couple episodes ago, you're going to have to kind of influence the style of play of the game. Like you're going to have to make that impact to the game. You can't let the game come to you and then read and react because we don't have the talent to do that right now. So we have to kind of have a style, commit to it, and then make the other team feel our style. And even if for 5 minutes, it's you come out with some type of lineup where you're going to have to surround Minott and Hugo with some other shooting, but like just defensively, if it's like, hey, here's a 3 to 5 minute stretch, I just want you guys to go nuts. Right, like just play balls to the wall, up and down, and like when I think of what the Terror Twins in Houston do, which is Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, for those of you that aren't quite familiar, is basically they just take the primary and secondary ball handler. Like you guys are not dribbling. Like I don't care where you guys go, and then they're so athletic they can also then hop off and affect stuff at the rim. Like they're insane. Like I don't think they're quite at that level, but there was a few times even last night in the Cleveland game where they're guarding the primary secondary ball handler, they get the ball to somebody in the post, next thing you know they're coming from the blind side, right? Like they're going for that steal, and I just think that chaos is really fun so far. I want to see how it translates to the regular season. And with Ugo, like you said, his defense feels like it's already getting to an NBA ready level, right? And we'll see what it looks like, when all of a sudden he's going up against, whether it's, Paul George on opening night or OG Anunoby a few days later or whatever. Like when we start to go up against real NBA guys, we'll know a little bit more. But I love what I see out of him. I love the potential, to your point, where the NBA is going, him being 19. This is, again, fitting into, has Brad found his developmental, because now that he has the time, Brad may have found 2 guys, a 22-year-old and 19-year-old, that he can actually develop to become that third guy, third man of that, wing stretch of the Jays. When we don't have them out there, who's someone else that can make an impact? It could be these guys offensively. Like you said, he's got a ways to go. Offensively, shot doesn't look broken. He's only hit 1 3 so far, but he makes good decisions. Like he seems like a guy that sees the game, right? Like he sees, he's not overwhelmed by the speed of the game. Part of that's having come from already professionally, even though he didn't get a ton of run in the Spanish professional league. He still has been around older professionals, seen guys that have been in the NBA and such. So I think for him, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve offensively, but I hope that he's a guy that Joe is just like, no matter what, he's getting like, 15 minutes a game or something. Like I really want to see him just be given the chance to grow game over game. But very exciting, the potential of Ugo and I think Minott combined. I really want to see what those look like in those second units. All right, let's go to, we got a couple guys left here. I think there's really 2 major guys that we should hit here. Let's go. I'll take Luka Garza here. There's 2 big men I think we need to go to here. I'll go to Luka Garza. Steady. Like that's the main word that just comes when I see Luka Garza. Like he's got his faults, right? He's 6'9", defensively it's gonna be a bit of a struggle. But when you go to the tenets of like where basketball is going, what it might look like, and the inefficiencies, Greg, you mentioned screen setting. We're gonna hear screen assist maybe 9 million times from Scal this year when Luka Garza's on the court, because he is a really good screen setter. Like, that's like offensively, Luka Garza, I think, moves really, really well. Like, he knows where to screen, he knows when to roll. He's got his limitations as far as he's not rolling and throwing down an alley oop. Like, he'll shoot a couple of threes. Like, I don't know how proficient he's going to be on that. Again, much like you mentioned with Josh Minott, I think it's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster if he's going to shoot them. But Joe Mazzulla is going to be okay with it if it's that 2-on-1 back to the advantage basketball. But I think Luka's just been super steady throughout these games. 10 points, 10 rebounds in the game against Memphis. Let's see, against Toronto out here, he was 12 points, 6 rebounds. And then against Cleveland last night, 7 points, 5 rebounds, setting solid screens. Like, I don't think he's going to wow you at any time. I don't think there's going to be many games where I'm like, holy shit, Luka Garza is something else. But I just think he's going to be a rock solid, steady 15 to 20 minute big that isn't going to get you killed. You got to hope that he's really hitting those boards, because despite what some of the numbers say overall, my eyes tell me rebounds are a problem. The numbers necessarily don't match that if you look at them just from like the holistic view. But watching it game to game, my eyes tell me that's going to be a problem. And Luka's got to be able to be a guy that can get you, depending on how many minutes he's playing, 7-8 rebounds and just be solid on that end. But I think he's just been very steady. And yeah, the Luka Garza experience has it's been nice. That's what I got for you.
And he just like Josh Minott, he's in the same situation back in Minnesota where Minott was playing behind wing players that were just better and more experienced for a contending team. He was playing behind Gobert, Towns, and Reed, or Gobert, Randall, and Reed. Like, there's no minutes for you at the 4 or the 5. And then McDaniels as well, because McDaniels sized up to the 4. So like, with him, he's just getting his opportunity to show what he can do. And there's a reason why he's been in the NBA, on NBA rosters since he was drafted, is because he's super smart. And there's a reason why he was the Big Ten Player of the Year. Like, he's just really, really smart on the offensive side of the ball. Everything he does on offense is additive. And, he's kind of like a little mixture of Luke Cornett and Al Horford, but like nowhere near the potential of either of them. But in terms of how Mazzulla wants his offense to run, and like the flow that needs to come within that offense, he's gonna make sure things aren't gummed up when he's in the game, right? He's gonna add to the flow of the game. He's not gonna be, like Keita doesn't make the smoothest reads. He kind of like slows things up, and he can only do a couple of things on a court. Like, Luka Garza is going to be able to make an impact offensively for the team. It's just Mazzulla's problem is going to be, how does he figure out defense while Garza is on the court, right? And it's just like, I guess it's ball pressure and hoping that they can force a lot of turnovers while Garza is on the court.
Yeah, because the thing is, like with Garza, even when he's in position on defense, he's just so athletically challenged that there's just certain guys that are just like, cool, you have position. I'm way more of an athlete than you.
He's
And
kind of
you're
got those
only
Kendrick
6'9".
Perkins cement shoe feet, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he doesn't have the quickest reaction time off the ground. So even though he's 6'9", he can't get up to get that. And it's, I mean, you see constantly, they were talking about it obviously in the broadcast last night, and this was on the Celtics broadcast, not necessarily the ESPN broadcast, depending on which one you watched last night. The Mazzulla point where just, hey, you gave up an offensive rebound, you're coming out, just constantly rotating us. And we'll see if he does that in the regular season, but clearly, as you may have heard Scal mention, it's a non-negotiable. I don't know if you knew that, Greg. It's a non-negotiable as far as defensive rebounding goes. And I do think that's going to be really tough, because Luka's in good position a lot of the times. It's just these guys are far more athletic. And so, like you said, defensively, and this is going to go for all of the Celtics bigs. Like, you can see it is going to be a carousel of bigs for this team, just trying to figure it out night to night. And I think it's going to take a while before Joe can get a real feel for, like, this matchup calls for Boucher and Garza. This matchup calls for Keita and Boucher, or, whatever it might be, because I just don't think any of these guys are going to have it consistently night to night, that you're just like, okay, I know I have this, and I just got to figure out who's the third big, which was kind of last year to it early on in the season, right? It was just, okay, if we have Horford and Porzingis, all we got to do is figure out, is it Luke or Nemi? And then obviously Luke separated himself by a mile towards the end of the season. But that was kind of the only thing we had to talk about for a while in the preseason last year. And now it's just, the rest of this team I'm feeling pretty confident about, but it's that front court that leaves you with a lot of questions. And like Luka, just, been fine. And then that leads into, I think, the last newbie that we really need to talk about, last significant newbie anyways. We can briefly touch on anyone else that we want to hit on, but that brings us to Chris Boucher, who started last night. And I forget, there was a comment, I'll try to look it up here in a minute, where it made it seem like last night's starting lineup could potentially be the starting lineup on opening night. And so that gave us Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, Sam Hauser, and Chris Boucher. And interesting offensive lineup. Little interesting in the other regard, in the other end of the interesting spectrum as far as defensively that goes. But Chris Boucher, a guy who, when he was on the Raptors, it was some nights, if you caught him on the right night, you're like, I see the potential. And then other nights you'd watch and go, I just don't see it. And I think that's kind of where we're going to live with.
I think
Chris
part
Boucher
of it is just like how ugly his shot is, right? So when his shot's going in, you're like, oh yeah, Chris Boucher. But then when his shot's missing, you're like, that's not an NBA looking shot. It's just like so unorthodox. Yeah, like how does he have the green light to shoot those 3-pointers? But when you think about how the Celtics have played over the last couple of years, like there's always been a stretch five, and aside from when Cornette's on the court, so Boucher, although he's not a 5, I think offensively fits the philosophy of what Missoula wants out there with the option to have a stretch 5. But Celtics basketball is not just shooting threes, Will. Celtics basketball is creating 2-on-1s and advantage.
2-on-1. It's 2-on-1. I don't care how you get it. How many times I have to tell you? How many times are you going to ask me this question?
I've said this for 3 years. I've said this for 3 years now. So that was so good.
I liked it, dude. Missoula's not fucking around. Missoula's going to have, I mean, he always has some incredible quotes. This year, I think it's going to go to another level, because now we're going to have actual contention and not just, hey, what's the championship outlook for this team?
Right. Yeah. And it's funny that like people still around the league still, even like someone like Simmons, who thinks of Missoula ball as just shooting 3-pointers, right? And on the ESPN broadcast, I guess they asked him about 3-pointers, and he said, we're not, like, I've never talked about 3-pointers before.
He's always called it advanced basketball. Like
always.
Like he always has, and we always corrected on this show where we're like, because it gets frustrating when you watch a national broadcast and they're like, the team that only shoots threes. It's like, no, like, I mean, yeah, we do shoot a lot of threes, but like, it just feels lazy because of how many times he said it.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that was just really funny to see. But I think with Boucher, the energy that he's bringing, and it's the preseason against all subs. But I was thinking during the preseason, I was like, what if Chris Boucher was playing last year instead of Kristaps Porzingis in that Knicks series? like what is the replacement level player that, like, floor that needed to replace Kristaps Porzingis?
What's the war on that? What's the war on?
Is it Chris Boucher? Because like the 3-pointers, the energy on defense. He's just fun. He's just a fun player to watch. And when
he's a strange player, he's very weird to watch. Like I still don't have a feel for, like, okay, this is a night Chris Boucher had. Like I think it's going to be an interesting feel out process with him.
Yeah. I don't really know how much longevity there is with Chris Boucher at the 5. But I think in certain matchups for sure. I don't think you're going to start Boucher at the 5 against the Cavs or against the Knicks, because we're just going to get pounded, or against the Rockets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are certain teams that I think he can definitely be part of that starting lineup. But I think one of the benefits of this season is there's not going to be like a go-to starting lineup. Missoula's going to be able to be like, hey, I'm going to start whoever the fuck I think should start.
Yeah, it's like JB, Derek White, probably Pritchard will be staples. And then whether it's Hauser, Keita, Boucher, Garza, maybe Josh Minott, like maybe even Hugo. Yeah, that's just going to be a rotating group of who are we playing that night? What do the matchups dictate, or what do I think they dictate, or how do we want to play? And that's what we'll go. Anyone else other than some of the newer guys that are like lower down, like they've gotten some run, but not a lot to be able to make. I will say this: shout out to Wendell Moore on that dunk last night. That shit was electric.
Where did he go to
that was
school?
pretty impressive. He went to Duke, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, small sample size. I've liked a little bit of what I've seen of Wendell Moore. Everyone else, I haven't really been able to make much of. But yeah, I mean, I think we've hit all of the new guys that they're going to play a part in this season coming up. I do want to ask you this, Greg, before we go to interesting team, interesting player here as we look around the league before the season gets started here. A week from Wednesday, by the way, so we're getting close, guys. Anything that's kind of, let's take a negative turn just for a minute here. Anything that you found disappointing so far? It doesn't have to be the new guys. This can be anywhere here, but anything that you've been disappointed in or has gotten you, extra levels of concern here through 3 games.
No, preseason's all about looking for the silver lining. So I really haven't looked at any of the negatives. If you really want me to say something, maybe I was expecting Kada to pop a little bit more, but
That was where I
that's
was
about it.
going. There's
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest thing for me is Kada's been a pretty big disappointment through 3 games. He didn't play in the first game. Raptors game, I thought he was just awful. I think it was the third quarter where he just had 3 like inexcusable fouls. I think 2 offensive, setting screen, another one. I think it was just like out of control defensively, and it's like, man, I definitely had a little bit more expectations for Kada. He had a little bit of a run in that Cleveland game where he didn't play a lot, but he had like at least a nice cut and a dunk and got an offensive rebound, kept it high, put it back. So it's like, all right, little something positive to work off. But I think Kada's definitely been the probably the biggest disappointment. And then I'd say Baylor Shireman might be number 2.
I
But
didn't
part
really
of that,
have high expectations for Baylor. And
I
by the
didn't have a
way,
high.
Jordan
But,
Walsh is hurt. Jordan Walsh got hurt. He
mm,
strained his adductor in the first game. That's why he only played 8 minutes in the first game, and he's been in
okay.
street clothes ever since.
Okay, so maybe we reserve a little bit of judgment on Jordan Walsh. We'll see. But given the impressions that we've gotten from Minott and Hugo, it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for Jordan Walsh. So we'll have to see how that goes. For the Celtics, they are back in action, preseason finale at the TD Garden against the Raptors on Wednesday night. So we will give you our final preseason thoughts after that game. So make sure you are locked in with us on YouTube, and Twitter will go live after that. And then that gives us a full week off, Greg, until we have the opening night against the Philadelphia 76ers on the 22nd. So it's Monday right now, the 13th. 22nd is the opening night against the Sixers, and then we're off and running from there. Knicks on Friday night, and then that goes right into the season from there. So as we have been doing here, let's wrap up today's episode with one interesting team, one interesting player from around the league. Greg, I'm going to let you kick this one off here. Who do you got for us?
I'm going to go Golden State Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga. And the reason why I bring this up is in the context of Josh Minott from earlier, right? Where Steve Kerr over the past 3 years has been wanting Jonathan Kuminga to just play the role that the Celtics envision for a Josh Minott, that the T-Wolves see with Jaden McDaniels, right? And Jonathan Kuminga is like, hey, I want to be a featured offensive piece. I don't want to play off the ball. I'm just going to like do what I do on the court, which is why last year in the playoffs, you see Steve Kerr playing dudes who have no business talent-wise being compared in the same sentence to Jonathan Kuminga. But Steve Kerr is like, I'm not going to play Kuminga until I need someone to score the ball. Like, I don't need someone to score the ball right now because I got Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green, right, and Pods and all those people that can figure out the offensive philosophy. But when Steph Curry goes out, he's like, okay, I need someone that actually can do something with the ball. So Kuminga, now you can play, but you're not going to play in a role because you don't know how to play that role and you're not willing to play that role. And with Kuminga, it's like, dude, the NBA is trending in a way for you to thrive. Like, you should be a phenomenal NBA player for the next 5 years, just from all the things that we outlined earlier. If you figure out, one, the right team to be on, or two, the team that you're on, and you just have to swallow your fucking ego and figure out how to play a role, because you could be great, dude. You could be a piece to a championship winning team if you just did all the things that I outlined earlier. Right. But he's not a good screen setter. He is a good cutter. He can cut really well, but he just like does a lot of shit that leaves
He
you
could be a
scratching
good
your head.
rebounder. He doesn't necessarily commit to it. I think he could be, and
Right.
that's been one of Kerr's points of emphasis is like, bro, like I should be able to play you 25 minutes and like you should go get like 8 rebounds because
Yeah.
like you're that athletic, you're that
Every long
strong.
rebound is yours, my guy.
Exactly. And then that's kind of, I think they touched on this in the Goldsberry and Simmons piece, but like I think they started talking about Giannis where like those long rebounds, because there's so many more 3-point shots. Like if you're a guy like Kuminga, you get that with momentum, just take
Mhm.
off.
Yep.
Like, and all of a sudden you're a one-man fast break that's
Did you see
heading to
his
the
dunk
lane.
last
That's
night?
Kuminga's. I did not know. Did he
Ooh.
throw down?
Yeah, dude, check it out. Check it out.
Okay. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, I think that's an interesting piece because I mean Kuminga's always been the one. I mean, he's really the last opportunity for the 2 timeline Warriors to have any significance, right? Like
Mhm.
after that, they're kind of just like they're back to, hey, whenever Steph runs out of gas, we're completely out of gas and we're just restarting over. So unless Kuminga either turns into something himself or he turns into something that they can turn into something else, this is their last chance to really kind of hold on to it. And the Warriors are like, they're a retirement home, and I don't think they really have true championship expectations, but he's the one guy that, through either his own play or his play turning into something else that can potentially get them into that next level. Like they're a really interesting team. Like I'm going to have fun watching them because I think, when they're firing on all cylinders, like Al Horford is going to be such a seamless fit there, even at his age. Like
Mhm.
him and Draymond being able to be the facilitators off of a pick and roll, like in the short roll or pick and pop more, probably specifically with Al Horford, and then either being able to shoot the 3 or be able to then turn that from right back to him into another side pick and roll with him and Jimmy or Steph flaring off of wherever God knows where he's coming from. Like, I think they're going to be a really fun watch. They're going to be a really intelligent team. And like to your point, I just don't know where Kuminga's going to fit in. He's either going to fit in or he's going to fit out, and we'll see what happens with it. But I do think, to your point of where this podcast overall theme of where the NBA is going, he's going to be a guy that should be thriving. And it might just be one of those situations where he just has to go someplace else. And
Mhm.
then we'll see, if it works or if it doesn't work. All right, my interesting team, interesting player. I'm going very obvious here, but to your point, I haven't been super locked into other teams in the preseason, so mostly catching a lot of highlights. But Dallas Mavericks, Cooper Flagg.
Mhm.
Uh, it looks real good, man. It
Coop
looks
can
real
hoop.
good. Yeah, and so obviously, no one should give Nico any love or credit for what's happened with the Dallas Mavericks. It is what it is, though, and that team, even without Kyrie, is kind of interesting because there's so much depth to that team. It's weird depth. It doesn't necessarily all make sense. There's not a lot of ball handling and creativity unless Cooper Flagg is just that dude already. And from dating back to what was it, Team USA last year, where he was part of that alternate team, and everyone just stamped him immediately. Like the
Mhm.
best players in the league were like, yeah, Cooper was like already one of the best guys on that team. And you saw a few of the highlights come out, and you're just like, yeah, he's running with these guys, no problem. And you're already seeing that. You're seeing he's athletic. You're seeing his intelligence on the court. You're seeing he knocked down a couple of shots that I saw the other day, and like that's going to be massive if Cooper can even be with what I'm assuming is going to be an outsized ball handling responsibility for a rookie. If he can even be, a 34, 35% 3-point shooter, that's going to be a massive boon to what the Mavericks are trying to do. But their length and size on defense, if they can hold up and potentially get, Kyrie back, like Nico may have a 1 or 2 year window with that team. Still don't make the fucking Luka trade. Like it's still an abomination. But like that team is really, really interesting with the weird depth they have. And if they get Kyrie back, like could be an actual problem. So the Mavericks are a team I'm really interested to watch for this upcoming season.
Listen, as much as I hate Nico Harrison for that trade, just and all the shit that he said after it, and him, falling ass
That's in
backwards, Kramer
championships.
style into Cooper Flagg, it's just like Dallas Mavericks fans deserve a team that they want to root for, and like to
Mhm.
see the city like revolting against Nico, but against the franchise and trickling down onto the basketball court. Like, that's not good for anybody, man. Like, the Mavs fans are good fans and they deserve a good product. And for the fans, it's good that they got the karma of Cooper Flagg coming back to them, because he's just so much fun, dude, watching him on the court. Like, he just moves like a superstar when you see him on the court. On both ends of the court, you're like, dude, this guy,
He's got
he's got it. Like, the jumper's not the prettiest, but he's 6'8" and he can get it off
Mhm.
whenever he wants. Handles not the tightest, but he's going to figure that out with increased reps. And then defensively, he's just an absolute menace out there in passing lanes. Not the smoothest on-ball defender, but I don't think he's going to necessarily need to be with that team.
But
I think
I mean, the
he's going
crazy
to be a
thing is
disruptor.
and Tatum is one of his like guys that he looks up to, and obviously the brotherhood Duke, all that stuff is like we say Tatum's superstar attribute is that you can't find anything that he's below average at, right? He's
Right.
either
Yeah.
average, above average, or great at every skill you need. That's kind of where Cooper Flagg is trending, and he's already feels like just about everything. He's at least average in, which is crazy for I think I heard Goldsberry talking about this as well. Like he reclassifies, like he's a year younger than he's
Right.
supposed to be. Like he's still crazy to me that he has a twin brother who's now a freshman at Maine, and he's in the NBA because he reclassified. So like he's supposed to be a freshman in college this season.
Right.
And so now he's already in the pros. And so, yeah, the fact that he's already feeling like he's going to be average just about everything to above average already as an 18, 19
Dude,
year
he's
old,
like a
like it's,
mix. He's a mix of like LeBron, Jason Tatum, and Andre Karolinko.
yeah, it's going to be fun. We may have to find a way to get to a Mavericks game this year. I don't know when the Celtics are going to Dallas, but we may need to find a way to go watch Cooper Flagg in person. But speaking of LeBron, out for the first couple weeks of the season, man, old man injury like sciatica. It's not a good sign for Father Time finally
Well, he's
potentially coming
always
late
had
on.
lower back issues. I remember when Steve Yee did that documentary with him. Shout out to our guy Steve Yee, Wood Island
Mhm.
Media. I think just finished rapping or is releasing a new film called Batty. I'll have to check in with him. Also, is in the hospital right now
About to be a
with his
daddy.
wife Tita, checking in on the Celtics preseason from
Yeah,
the
that was a
delivery
wild.
room.
That was
That
a
was
wild
wild.
text
I
message,
wouldn't
my
even
guy.
do
That's
that,
all right.
Steve.
Yeah,
Crazy.
especially, dude. I was in the hospital with Mariana when it was Celtics playoffs, and I was struggling to get the game on.
He's watching the preseason.
Preseason.
That's hardcore. Shout out to you, Steve. Shout out to you, Tita. I hope everything's going well for you guys. But when he was doing that documentary with LeBron, I remember he said LeBron had a lumbar pillow, and Steve asked him like, "Hey, where'd you get that lumbar pillow?" And I guess LeBron was really excited to talk about it, and even showed Steve where to order it. So he's always had those issues, and the sciatica and the lumbar are all connected. So it took 41 years for it to cause him to miss his first opening night in his entire
Right?
career.
Dude, year 23, and this is the first opening night that he's gonna miss. That shit is wild, man. Listen, LeBron's personality, not really for me, but what he does on the court, it's just insane what he's been able to do for this long. So I do hope that, obviously the stupid Hennessy ad, everyone was like, is this his last season? Like, good chance, could be, maybe not. We'll see. But like, I want LeBron to go out properly. I will say that. I need LeBron to go out properly and not just like sinking away into the night with back issues. Like, doesn't need to win a championship. Obviously, I'm not going to root for the Lakers to win a championship, but I want LeBron to go out swinging. Like that. That just feels like the only way for it to be. But that's going to do it for this episode here of Green with Envy. As we mentioned, we'll be back on Wednesday night following the preseason finale, Celtics Raptors. Let's see if the Raptors will bring out any of their starting lineup. Hopefully, I hope they do. I hope we get at least the first half where we
I
get
think we
like
will.
two. I think we will too, because there's like a week off for I think both teams after that. So I think we should get a little bit more analysis to talk about what these. And I think these are two teams that live in the same pocket of the Eastern Conference, where there's like 7 teams that could be the 6 seed or could be the 12 seed. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch. So we'll have a review of that game after it ends on Wednesday night. Greg, as always, it's been a pleasure. I'm excited for this season. I think we're going to have a lot of fun this year. So I'm looking forward to it, man. And yeah, everybody for tuning in. We will catch you guys Wednesday night after Celtics Raptors. I'm Will. This is Greg. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.